We'll salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Law and has been duly advertised in the newspaper as an official meeting. I will first do the roll call. So many papers today. Mrs. Barakis?
Here.
Mrs. Cass?
Here.
Dr. Osmond? Mr. Palmieri?
Here.
Mrs. Rivera?
Present.
Mr. Sargent?
Present.
And Mr. Walsh.
Present.
Okay. I will now read off the certification of the election results that were held on November the 3rd. On November the 3rd, Giuseppe Palmieri had votes of 5,401. Tina Cass had votes of 6,469. Erica Osman had votes of 6,749, and Allison Barakis for the one-year position had a vote of 9,105. Okay. And these are certified by the Ocean County Board of Elections. Okay. At this time, I would like to swear in the newly elected board members. If they can join me over here by the flag. Thank you. Thank you. Can we bring it back to you?
I,
And you say your name.
do
solemnly
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same and to the governments established in the United States,
to the same and to the governments established in the United States,
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I
Do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education,
prescribed by law for the office of member of the Board of Education,
and not disqualified as a voter pursuant to
Am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 1941.
and not disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense
I'm not disqualified due to conviction of a crime or offense listed in NJSA 18A112.
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
And that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all the duties of that office
all the duties of that office
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Have you signed yours? You can sign the two copies in the packet. This is it. You're just too close. You need one more, and you can go. Are you going to take pictures of you? Okay. Just leave them there with me for now, and I'll sign them too. I need to sign them also. Sorry. All right. No, that was my mistake. I'll keep yours. I'll give it back to you at the end. Okay. We're going to take pictures. So we'll take them individually, and you want it together and then individually? Okay. Ladies, if you come back, and we'll take them together, and then we'll do it individually. Okay, one of you at a time, and we'll shake hands. You can come here, and I'll shake your hand. At this time, we will call for nominations for the position of President of the Board.
I nominate Mike Walsh for president.
Okay. Next person? Okay, if no one else is being nominated, then we will have a vote for Mr. Walsh. Get my vote sheet out. Mrs. Barakis, your vote for Mr. Walsh?
Mr. Walsh?
Okay. Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Walsh is our new board president. I will turn the meeting over to him.
We'll just sit where we are. Okay, approval of the agenda. Oh, yeah, I'm jumping the gun, sorry. Oh, good, that's what I was looking for. Okay. Nominations for vice president?
I nominate Tara Rivera.
Any other nominations for vice president? Hearing none, let's put this up for a vote.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
No.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes. New vice president takes a position. I think we can stay right where we are. Okay, now, approval of the agenda. I need a motion for approval.
Mike, you mind if I make a motion? I need to make a motion to amend the resolution Q, R, S, and V to change the terms of their contracts to February 1st, 2022 through April 20th, 2022, and be it further resolved that the business administrator should solicit proposals from other qualified professionals for those services.
Mr. Rivera, if you could just read the letters again, just so that everybody's clear on what you're asking to be amended.
To amend the resolutions Q, R, S, and V to change the terms of their contracts to February 1st, 2022 through April 20th, 2022.
Okay, is there any other discussion about the agenda?
Now, hang on.
Second.
Yeah. Discussion. Just so we're clear, we're voting on the amendment first. So Ms.
Oh,
Rivera
okay.
made it, Mr. Sargent seconded it. Now we're up to discussion on just the motion to amend those items.
This is just the motion, okay.
Right, exactly.
All right, any discussion on the amended agenda?
Roll call.
Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Turn the meeting over to the superintendent for the code of ethics discussion.
We still need to vote for the agenda, please.
Oh,
And now we're going to vote on the agenda as amended.
sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, now, approval for the agenda. Need a motion?
Motion?
Second.
Any discussion on the amended agenda? Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Mrs. Barakas,
Yes.
Mrs. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sargent,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
and Mr. Walsh.
Yes. Now, I will turn the meeting over to the superintendent for the Code of Ethics discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Congratulations to all the new board members, and congratulations to the president and the vice president, and I look forward to working with everybody. Normally during reorg, there is not a superintendent's report, but I do want to just make one comment before I turn it over to Mr. Zittimer for the ethics review for the board members. I just want to reiterate, again, for the board and to the public who are listening, the reasons for our virtual learning this week are solely based on lack of staff to safely open all of our buildings and transport our students. As I had mentioned in the video that I had recorded this week, we had, at the time of the decision, over 180 staff members. That number has climbed. We continue to climb. In fact, tomorrow there'll be 212 staff members who are either in isolation, quarantined, or out for another reason. So I want to just reemphasize, this is a short-term virtual learning until we get staff back. We are on target to open for in-person learning on Monday with a number of staff who will be returning from quarantine. That is our full intention, to be in in-person learning on Monday. So I want to reiterate that. It is because of staffing only. I do have every other staff member who is well is in our buildings. They're not working from home, they're working here. So I've had some questions about why do I see cars in parking lots. It's because the staff who are not on isolation or in quarantine are working in the building. That helps us cover when we have last minute call outs and other things. We're all hands on deck helping each other. So I just wanted to make that clear again. We are on target as of now to be open for in-person learning on Monday, and that is our goal for sure. I want to reiterate, it has been a very difficult decision to make. We fought it to the very end. But we safely could not get our students back and forth to school, nor would we have appropriate coverage in our buildings. So with that, I will now
Mrs.
turn it
Palmieri,
over.
I have a question real fast.
Sure.
Do you have a timeline as to exactly when you're going to inform?
Yes, that's a great question. So yes, on Friday, I will be informing everybody of where we stand. So our community, our parents, and our educators, our staff. You're welcome. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zittimer for the Code of Ethics review.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the new Board of Education members. For purposes of tonight's meeting, I'm going to give a brief executive summary of the New Jersey School Ethics Act. I will do a more formal PowerPoint presentation at our regular meeting in January or sometime in February after I confer with the board officers and the administration. For purposes of tonight's presentation, it's important that board members recognize that New Jersey School Ethics Act is a law in the state of New Jersey that governs the ethical, I'll say, do's and don'ts for school officials. And school officials includes not only Board of Education members, but high-level administrators within the school district. We have within the School Ethics Act the section involving conflicts of interest, and those sections predominantly deal with the fact that board members and other school officials are not allowed to take action or vote on matters where they have a direct or indirect personal or financial involvement in the matter. You shouldn't vote on things essentially where there's a conflict of interest. And if there's ever an issue with a conflict of interest, you need to abstain from that particular course of action. I always tell board members if something doesn't pass the smell test, if somebody's going to question whether you were voting on something for the best interests of the school district or for your own personal gain, you should always abstain and recuse yourself from that course of action. Within the School Ethics Act, we also have the Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics only applies to Board of Education members, and that really defines the roles and responsibilities of board members. A couple points that I wanted to highlight are the section involving the fact that the primary role of a Board of Education member is setting policy for the school district. The role of a board member essentially is establishing policy, the rules and regulations that guide the school district, planning for the future of the district, and appraisal, taking a step back and saying, how are we doing? What can we do better? We set goals for ourselves every year. Did we achieve those goals? What are the things we'd like to accomplish this year? The role of a board member is not administration, and the Code of Ethics says that board members are not to administer the schools. You've got an excellent administrative team here in Jackson. The day-to-day operations of the school district are to be handled by the administration, not by the Board of Education. The board is a policy-making body, and I think oftentimes members of the community think that the board has a different role than it really has. Again, it's a policy-making body. The other thing I want to stress to board members is the issue of confidentiality. As board members, you're going to come across a lot of confidential information, confidential personnel matters, confidential student matters, matters of attorney-client privilege, litigation, and so forth. The law permits us to discuss those matters in closed session or executive session. We don't discuss those in the public domain as we are right now. It's extremely important that what is discussed in closed session, the communications that you receive from the administration remain highly, highly confidential. I always tell my board member clients that if the board members in those closed sessions can't trust that what's discussed and said in those meetings stays confidential, it'll completely impede the board's ability to be an effective body, because nobody's going to want to speak openly and honestly for fear that what they say is going to get out in the community. That is a serious ethics violation, and it really, like I said, impedes the board's ability to be effective. I want to remind board members that their spouses, their children, they are not subject to the Ethics Act. They are not subject to the Code of Ethics. So it's prohibited to share information with your own family members. If they breach what's told to them, you're going to be ultimately responsible. And there are serious penalties for violations of the Ethics Act, including public censure, which is embarrassing, as well as things like suspension and ultimately removal from the Board of Education. The administration has attached a nice PowerPoint here from New Jersey school boards. I do strongly encourage everybody to read the PowerPoint, and like I said, I'll be doing a presentation within the next month or so, a little bit more of a formal presentation, and I'll actually talk about some actual cases that have come down from the New Jersey School Ethics Commission on some of these topics to kind of put a finer point on some of the things I talked about this evening. So thank you. Does anybody on the board have any questions for me about the Ethics Act or the Code of Ethics? No? We're good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, I turn it back to you.
Thank you. I need a motion to move 1E.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call.
Mrs. Barakis,
Yes.
Mrs. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sargent,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes. Need a motion to move 1F through 1BB.
Motion.
Second.
Give you a second to take a quick look. It's a lot right there. Discussion.
And for the benefit of the new board members, if you don't feel that you have enough information on some of these things, it is acceptable for you to abstain. That's up to you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mrs. Barakis,
Yes.
Mrs. Cass,
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sargent,
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes. Need a motion to open public forum on any topic pertaining to the Board of Education.
Motion.
All questions and concerns will be answered and addressed at the end of the public forum, once all individuals have had their opportunity to speak. When your name is called by Mrs. Richardson, please come to the microphone. Each person will be allowed a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on a topic until all others have spoken. Mrs. Richardson, please call the first person.
Devora Ruskin,
Hi, good evening. My name is Devorah Griskin. First of all, welcome to all the new board members. Nice to meet you. I am a mother living in Jackson for close to 5 years, have 4 children in school. I currently send to a private school in Lakewood, and we have been working alongside Michelle and the rest of the board members to try to secure transportation for myself, my family, to the private school that I send to in Lakewood. The schedule that I run on, is that my children all begin school at 9 o'clock. One child ends at 1:45, one ends at 4 o'clock, 2 end at 4 o'clock, and one ends at 4:45. For me to do all that transportation myself, like if I would pick up my 4 o'clock children, I would almost not be home to pick up my 4:45 children. I would be in the car approximately 3.5 hours a day, not be able to prepare dinner for my kids. I have had to cut down on my work hours because my youngest child, who ends at 1:45, if I have to pick him up, I can't work till 2 o'clock. If he would be bused home, I can meet him at the bus stop at 2 o'clock. So last year, we had discussions with Michelle. We had some discussions, emails back and forth with some board members to see what could be done to help out the private school students secure transportation. We opened up the discussion, the lines of communication. We got very delayed answers. As of, I think, August 8th, I was told that my children will not be having transportation. I will get reimbursed with aid in lieu. August 8th was about 3-4 weeks before my children started school, and in that very small time frame, I was not able to secure proper transportation for my kids. We were told that this year is going to be the year of change. We're going to open up all the possibilities and look into what could be done for the many private school children who are without transportation, and for myself. And I'm just wondering if we can try to push up our deadlines, put out the private school bids to the vendors by March 1st, get answers by March 30th, out to parents, so that if by March 30th, April 1st, I know that I don't have transportation, I can then have an option to compete with all the other bids going out from other schools and get my children out on a bus. I was also, another point that might be helpful is whether it's myself or anyone in my community, that I'm happy to put in work. I know it's my children that need to get to school. And if we can have a point of contact between the board members, the transportation department, who will really contact our community, get in touch with all the schools, have proper communication with all parents and all school administrators to really get us information in a timely manner, I think that would be very, very helpful going forward. So looking to work together with you to see what we can do to take care of this and make my life a bit easier, at least for the coming year. Thank you.
S.D. Friedman. S.D., this is a timer. When it gets to red, you have 1 minute to go.
I'm sorry?
When it gets to red on here, you have 1 minute to go.
Okay. Good evening. This is my first time participating in community affairs, so hi. I've been living in Jackson for 2.5 years. I had been living in Lakewood before then. My oldest daughter was still in a private daycare when I moved here, so transportation was my problem. Once we were looking into schools, a friend of mine was saying, "Oh, you live in Jackson, you should probably just find the school closest to you because the transportation is so hard to come by." So I was like, I'll go wherever I can get to. Turns out the school that my daughter was accepted to is over 10 miles away from my house. So when it came to filling out paperwork for transportation from the private school, anyone who sends to that school from my neighborhood just knew, opt out. You're too far away from school to even qualify for the transportation. So that's what we did. And it wasn't ever a conversation, except that it's a 35-minute drive to and from. And then when there's traffic involved, it can go for much longer than that. So we have been arranging a private van to drive our girls to school. So far, it's been okay. This year, it's been a little bit sketchy. Availability was very scarce, but we try to make it work. My younger daughter is starting school this coming year, 2023. And my two girls are going to have completely different dismissal times. One is going to be like at 2:45, and the other one will be at 4:30, I think, which will become problematic. So it would be great if at least I know my younger daughter is not going to qualify for busing anyway. She's too young. But if my older daughter would have transportation, that would give me the flexibility to deal with my younger daughter's transportation. And as a side note, I'm a freelancer. I do floral arrangements, and I'm not always on a 9-to-5 schedule. Sometimes people call me later in the day that they need something in emergency. So having that flexibility where I know I can just be at my house on time for the bus instead of arranging transportation would really enable me to, do better with my entrepreneurship. Thank you for your time.
Surrey Robinson.
Hi, I'm Surrey Robinson. First of all, thank you all for your service. I know it's a very underthanked behind-the-scenes jobs, and I appreciate it. I feel lucky to live here in Jackson for the past 3 years on Hampshire Boulevard. And I wanted to bring something to your attention also regarding the transportation. Last year we had a Zoom meeting with some parents and school administrators about the issues of transportation. My kids are in 2 different schools. I have 4 daughters go to non-public school in Lakewood, 3 in one school and 1 in another school. So we had asked at the meeting that we just be notified earlier on, because if we're not going to have busing, then we can try to procure private transportation, whether it's a bus, getting all the neighbors together and hiring a private bus, or hiring private van service. We were only informed in August of the fact one of my daughters did get a bus, one in a separate school, but I can't even use that because I have to be driving all my other kids to school who don't have a bus. In August, we tried to find private busing. All the bus companies told me, we would have been happy to help you earlier on in the year, but at this point, there's nothing to talk about. All the private vans that we had been in talks with earlier in the year, and they said, well, we don't have a confirmation yet because we don't know if those aid in lieu funds are coming our way or we're going to be picked up. None of them were available. So every morning I drive all my kids to school. I get to work late. I have to leave work early to drive them all home. And all these plans, these work plans, had to be shifted last minute. So I understand last year, I know my voice was heard on the Zoom and it was taken into consideration, and I know that change takes time. But now that we're so early on in the year, I really ask that we have not just, the idea of change, but actual real commitment, because the strain that it has on myself, my neighbors and friends, to not be able to make work plans until August, to not be able to say this is when I can get to work, or this is when I'll have to leave work, to not know if I'll have to be there waiting at the bus for my daughter or getting transportation, being notified earlier in the year, April time, when all the other, when the vans are still available, private busing would be available, we could just know, yes, you'll have to be there, or no, you won't have, you'll have to arrange private busing or drive yourself. That would be extremely helpful. It would take a tremendous toll off of us. And I know there's a lot of financial considerations that go into deciding when to give up the routes and to, release the aid in lieu, so to speak. But I ask that, as parents, the tremendous strain that's taking on us also be taken really much into consideration. I want to ask you, even tonight, is there a way that we can get a commitment to move the date up earlier so we can know as parents that we're going to have a better year this year? We're going to have answers earlier, not the August 1st date, because that really leaves us all with, really no answers. Is there a way that we can have like a real commitment to an actual date change? Is that something that we can do? I don't know if that's something we can do in this forum.
We're going to respond to all public comment when everybody's all done.
Okay,
and I'll answer your question.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for giving me the floor, and have a good night.
Rachel Warman.
Hi, my name is Rachel Warman. I live in Jackson for a few years, and firstly, I'd like to thank everybody on the board for all the help that everything you've been doing for us over the past few years. I came here tonight to discuss the lack of transportation for my children to school and how it affects my entire family. Being that I'm blessed with a family of children of various ages, each of my children are on a different time school schedule. That means that since we have no transportation to and from school, I have to coordinate many different carpools in a single day. My husband has a very demanding work schedule, and I find that instead of me being able to be a mother for my children, I'm just driving in the car for much of the day. Now, since you're all in the education field, and I'm sure some of you parents, you surely understand the need for a child to be properly prepared for school. However, on many mornings, instead of being able to prepare my children for school, I need to be driving carpool for my oldest son between 7:05 a.m. until 8 o'clock a.m. At that time, I come home to find that the rest of my children have not had time to eat a proper breakfast and be ready for their different carpools to school, and then I must pull myself together for my next round of morning carpools. And since you're all in the field of education, you surely understand the need for a child to be able to do proper homework at night, be fed a nutritious supper, and be put to bed on time. I, as a mother, also feel that these needs are very important for my children. However, on many afternoons and evenings, I find that instead of being able to prepare dinner, I need to gather my youngest children into the car, no matter what the weather, at 4:30 p.m. for one carpool. By the time we come home, my children are exhausted and hungry, yet we have to run out again at 6 p.m. to pick up my oldest son. Understandably, there isn't much time left for homework or bath time, and bedtimes usually get pushed way later than they should. Additionally, sometimes I need to be busy finding a babysitter to watch some of my children, as I don't have room in my minivan for all the kids in and plus my children in my carpool. For some carpools, I have to remove my younger children's car seats in order to make room for more children in the carpool so that I don't have to take each carpool every day and then be busy reinstalling all the car seats later when I need to bring my little children into the car. All this time spent on carpooling has also severely impacted my own work schedule. Needless to say, the lack of proper transportation to and from school is severely compromising on our goals of raising happy, healthy, and successful children. This difficult situation, I feel, was caused by finding out only at the end of the summer that the township will not be providing transportation for this school year. If we would have had ample notice, we would have been able to work out a viable solution. I'm respectfully requesting that we have notice by April, the latest, what the status of our transportation is for the coming year, so that we have time to make proper arrangements and we're not left with the same situation all over again next year. Thank you for your time.
That is the end of my list.
I see a group of people did come in late. Did anybody else want to sign up? No? Okay. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to the superintendent so that she can respond to the public forum. Oh, hold it. We should close it, right? No, sorry. Seeing no one else come forward, I need a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, I will turn the meeting over to the superintendent for response to the public forum.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Thank you to those community members who spoke this evening and for sharing your concerns. And thank you to the rest of you who have come out this evening. So I will briefly address just the situation that we were in this past year to make the decision in order to provide aid in lieu versus transportation to all of you in the non-public schools. There's a process we have to follow, and those of you who were involved with Ms. Richardson this past year on some of those Zoom meetings and our attempts to open better lines of communication would know that we had to take it through a multi-step process before we could make that decision. We're required to do certain things, one of which is, can we bus ourselves? for the non-public schools, putting it out to bid. Does anybody take any of those bids before we can make a commitment to say we can't do it, transportation one way or another, and instead we'll provide aid in lieu. So that's the process we have to work through. Now, meanwhile, during that process this past year, we've experienced, as I believe you all would know, the driver shortage, which didn't help at all. That crept upon us unexpectedly, and as you know, it's national driver shortage. And there is a set timeline that we're required to let non-public community members know whether we can transport or provide aid in lieu. Ms. Richardson, can you remind me of that date?
The state of New Jersey requires us to have everyone notified by August 1st. That is the plan, what the state put out to us.
By August 1st?
Yeah, the
Thank
forms are not received by us until March 15th. That's when the parents are required to complete the forms by March 15th.
Okay. So by March 15th, the forms need to be in that they are requesting aid in lieu or transportation.
Correct. Be into their non-public school. Correct.
Okay, perfect. And then also, additionally, we were challenged with the fact that we had not had a director in our transportation department for a year. So we were dealing with those challenges as well. We have since hired an interim director who is doing an excellent job and will be able to better guide us this year. So we are committed to keeping lines of communication open. I know Ms. Richardson has been working over these past few months in establishing a better list of communication and who we're going to communicate with and how we communicate, correct?
Correct.
So that should hopefully be improved. We are definitely working to see if we can get things out to bid faster. So we do have a commitment to try and be better at communicating and getting information to you as soon as we can, but we have to work through certain channels to do that. I can imagine how difficult it is to have to worry about your children getting to school. I can understand that as a parent myself, and I empathize with you on that. So we will continue to strive to communicate as soon as we possibly can. And as I said, I think, having a director in place, and Ms. Richardson, who has been also this year establishing a lot more protocols in our office so that communication is better, clearer, forms are better recorded, and all of that happens. So we are hopeful for improvement in all of those areas, and we will continue to communicate, and we appreciate you communicating tonight about the difficulties you've had. So we aim to get better at that as well. Ms. Richardson, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, you covered it very well.
Okay. Thank you. And that concludes my responses, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. I need a motion to move finance.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass? Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
And Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Need a motion to move personnel.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call.
Mrs. Barakis?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Sargent?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
And Mr. Walsh?
Yes. Need a motion to adjourn by acclamation.
Mr. Walsh, are we going to have any type of closing comments at all?
We normally do that in this meeting?
No, but
Okay,
I'm asking.
we can. All right, we'll have board comments before we close.
Okay, I'll start. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I appreciate the community coming and supporting the new board members. In reference to transportation, Mr. Walsh, I would like to be on the Transportation Committee this year for 2022, and so that there can be another voice to be heard since Mr. Herman has retired from the board. I think that we would need someone else to step into his shoes, and I would like to be that person. In reference to the timing of when the district can do the busing issue, I truly feel like by April 1st, we should be able to have it done. I'm not sure that the business administrator would agree with me right this moment, but we'll talk about that in the near future. But I think it would be fair to the private busing community to be prepared. They cannot secure busing for their students if we wait until August 1st. I understand what the law is, but August 1st is just not going to cut it for Jackson Township. And that is not just for one group, that is for all the groups of Jackson. In addition, we probably just need, and this is just a guess based on my observation, I would say that we probably need to just farm the whole busing out. The aid and lieu, in my limited opinion, is it's not working. And in reference to when I see small vans pulling out of small developments going 60 and 70 miles an hour with students, regardless of whether they belong to Jackson School District or any other school district, they're still students. And I think that these van drivers are very difficult to monitor and keep up with, whereas a big giant yellow school bus may be a little bit easier. So I would say that we should try to look into that. I would also say that the bus district, the district itself, the busing issues that we've had in the past are in the past, and I would say that we need to give the Jackson School District a chance this year to try to make it work. I know we did it last year, and it didn't work out very well for a lot of you. But I have faith in Ms. Primelli and our new busing director that we can get this job done. And the easiest way that I can see to get it done, again, is to farm it out. Take all of these issues that you have expressed and don't allow it to be held in the hands of people that are not capable of it. I would say that once it's farmed out, then you can talk to the people that own the contract for the year.
Can I just ask a quick question? Farming out meaning out to bid?
Yeah.
Right, okay, thank you.
And out to bid, it shouldn't take forever to go out to bid for these busing contracts, correct?
It takes a little bit of time because there's a process like everything else, right? We have to follow a legal process with documentations. You have to put them out to bid, wait for them to bid back, and you have to take the lowest bid. So there is a process, and it does take some time. Ms. Richardson, does it take at least a month or so?
It's at least 2 months for us to put them out and actually vote on them to have them back in. Yes.
Yeah, so that's why April might be a little tight, because if we're not getting the forms until March, we still need a couple of months to get out to bid. So
then you could reallocate funds and people to get it done quicker then.
we can talk about that, but again, it's a timeline process more than a people process
Well,
kind
we
of thing.
can talk about it right now, right? I mean.
Oh, yeah, right now, yes.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, seriously, I cannot understand why it would take so long to get this done.
Well, it's good that you asked to be on the Transportation Committee, because I think that will help. That's exactly where we'll talk about all of that, and then we can report out publicly to the board and to everybody about it. But we certainly are looking to move timelines up as fast as we can.
So 2 months is the time frame. So from, I guess you're saying by May 15th then? Is that correct?
I think that would be maybe a more realistic date than April.
Okay, so I will definitely write those dates down, and we'll be looking forward to May 15th being the ultimate deadline for.
Mr. Sargent, I didn't say May 15th was the ultimate deadline. I said it's a more realistic timeline. I would like the opportunity in the Transportation Committee to outline the steps of the process, explain it to everybody, and again, report it out.
Well, how long has the busing director been in this position?
How long has he been in his position? Since mid-September.
So, are you indicating that it takes 6 months for the busing director to outline all of this?
Absolutely not. In the next Transportation Committee meeting, I'm sure he can outline it for us.
Okay. So he'll have it outlined. We're going to go out to bid. And May
That's a
15th
possibility
is
to
not
go
a
out to
realistic
bid.
date.
If we could have enough drivers to cover some of it ourselves, we would do that too.
Okay. All right, thank you. Folks, have a good night. Drive safely.
Any comments? Okay. Tara?
I want to thank everyone for coming out and their input, and congratulations to all new board members. I look forward to working with each and every one of you collaboratively. Have a good night.
Down to the far end. Any comments?
I would just like to thank Jackson for giving me the opportunity to serve on the board. I look forward to working with everyone. I congratulate my fellow colleagues that were elected as well. I thank everybody for coming out. It's always important, I think, for the community to speak their voice as well. And I wish everyone a good night. Thank you.
Next. You don't have to make a comment if you...
Well, I would like to just start by thanking my family for always supporting me. I would like to also thank the residents of Jackson for the opportunity and entrusting me with this opportunity. I would like to congratulate my fellow elected, newly elected board members. I look forward to working with all of the board, Ms. Permilli, and the entire administrative staff. To all the parents, I'm here to serve you to the fullest extent of my position, and I thank you all for this opportunity. Get home safely. God bless you, and God bless America.
Thank you. Good night, all. This is the first of many to come. All right, there'll be a lot of learning to go on with this board in the next month or two. Have a good night. By acclamation to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.